Hey everybody, it's Aiden Hall here, podcast editor for Byte. I am standing here next to senior audio director and head composer for Blizzard Entertainment, as well as the head composer for Video Games Live Tonight here at Ball State University, Mr. Russel Brower. Mr. Brower, it's an honor to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you.
So what got you into doing video game composure and just like breaking into the industry, since it's not a lot of things you hear about, like big orchestras in video games, except in recent memory?
Well, I grew up enamored with classical music and film scores, and I always wanted to be a part of music that told a story. That's the kind of stuff I always liked, if the music painted a clear picture or something like that. And when I first started working in, I worked in theme parks and toys and film and television. And video games at those days weren't quite that interesting yet. I mean, I loved playing them, but the music wasn't compelling.
They were back in the 16-bit days.
It was bleeps and bloops, and or 8 or 4.
Oh, yeah.
And but long around kind of the early 90s, it started getting really interesting, because you started hearing real recordings of music, whether it was an orchestra or even just or keyboards, but it was recordings and not synthesized with low resolution. And I thought, okay, time to get interested in that.
What would be some of your advice for like music students that would be interested in getting into video game composing?
Well, it's like any, whenever art and commerce meet, which is very much what's happening with video games, it gets very competitive, and in that intersection of art and commerce, it can be a dangerous place for sensitive people. And the best composers, I think, and artists and any other creative endeavor, pretty sensitive folks. And so I always tell people, I know it sounds cliched, but you've heard before, follow your dreams, don't give up, be sure that what you choose to do for your career is what you're really passionate about. They sound like platitudes, but they're all true. In fact, they're so true that you pretty much have to focus on this and not have a plan B. You got to be like completely relentless. Like music, in my case, music, it has to be something you would do anyway, even though that if you don't have a gig or you would stay home at night, you get off your day job and you come home and you make music anyway. If you're that kind of person, you're just driven, you probably have a chance, because someone who just gets a degree of some kind, I mean, more power to them, but if they don't have that drive. Yeah, they're gonna run into some pretty stiff competition.
Now, the big, elephant in the room, what was it like composing probably the most listened to video game soundtrack of all time, where you essentially created a soundtrack to a world of Warcraft? What was it like for you, since this has been your baby? You've constructed this entire world. People listen to your music daily as they log in. Trailers, people are screaming just hearing your music playing. What was it like tackling such a huge project that, it's taken the world by storm?
Well, thank you, first of all. But even more important, I want to be sure and give a shout out to my fellow composers, because the thing is, I think the best Blizzard game music has been written by multiple people. And so my job when I started, which will be this June, will be 10 years ago, there was already a rich musical legacy of Blizzard from people like Glenn Stafford and Jason Hayes and Derek Duke. And so when I came on board, we were just starting up the expansion Burning Crusade. And so my job was not to put my thumbprint on it and change everything. For each of us, when we whether we're working on World of Warcraft, or maybe when we started Diablo 3, which had this rich throwback to the original Diablos, we have a responsibility to remember that from the gamer's point of view, it's a continuum, it's a franchise, and so when there's great melodies that were established, whether you're talking old StarCraft, old Diablo, the old Warcraft games, Warcraft 1, 2, 3, we try to quote those melodies and amplify them and continue them.
So building on the status quo.
Absolutely. And then if there's then you wait for that golden opportunity where, like, maybe we introduce a new playable race, and that's when you get to go, okay,
you got this.
I'm gonna come up with something new. but hopefully fits in. So it's a big responsibility to make sure that for our audience, it doesn't feel like the continuity's lost or something like that, or that someone new came in and took over. The game is a comfortable, safe place to be, and well, from your point of view, if you're a character, it can be pretty rough.
It's pretty dangerous.
But it's people grew up with this game, and all the music you heard tonight, these are the soundtracks to people's lives, and it is an honor to be a part of that. So there's a responsibility, but at the same time, we sit in our little rooms and make music, and we wonder if anyone's paying attention. So I love these shows because
you hear all the students yelling, "Horde, horde, horde."
We get to get a sense of the impact it's having, and there's nothing better for a composer, really.
Was there anything, speaking of building off of previous iterations, when it came to Warlords of Draenor, the newest expansion, was there anything that you felt you wanted to add in with the musical scores and compositions?
Well, as I often do, I go to the person who had a huge hand in creating these worlds, and that's Chris Metzen. He's our senior VP of all creative everything, right? And certainly the lore and the story. When we start a new project, I always look him up, and I ask him to give me just a few words. What's the heart and soul of this? And for Warlords of Draenor, he said, I want to take us back to when World of Warcraft first started. We want to get back to the
vanilla days,
the old conflicts, the eternal conflicts within World of Warcraft. But he said, this time, I want like the horde music to be sharp, like it would put your eye out. It would be like full of spikes and nasty things, so heavier, more
intense.
Yeah, it's definitely. It was an opportunity to press some really familiar buttons, but also to just up our game and make it more epic, more bold.
Well, just for our last question, I got to know personally, Horde or Alliance, which one do you choose?
I play both because I have to write music for
fair
both
enough.
sides.
Well played. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been my wonderful interview with Mr. Russel Brower. Sir, it was an honor.
My pleasure.
Oh, there we go. This is Aiden Hull for Byte, signing out.